Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Wolf, and I serve as the Executive Director of the World Food Travel Association based in Portland, Oregon. And welcome to day 2 of the Online Food Travel Summit. This is our second online summit. We hosted our first online summit back in 2015, and it was a big success. And we thought, well, people want to get education but not have to spend money or travel, so we are back for a second one this year, and we're very excited today to have two lovely ladies in the room. But before we get to them, I would like to make a couple notes with you. First of all, I wanted to make sure that everyone knows about some upcoming events that our association is either hosting or partnering with this year. We have an event in Sydney, Australia for the trade on May 21st. Food Tourism, A Piece of Cake in Greece on September 27. We have our Food Tourism Innovation Summit in London on November 4, and that is the day before WTM starts as well. And let's see here. We are up to 264 delegates today, still 36 countries. And I'd really like to thank all of you delegates, because without you, this summit would not be possible. So the speakers, yes, you guys are fantastic and smart, and smarter than I could ever be, and taking your time to share your knowledge with us. But the delegates, you're the glue that hold it all together. And without you, there would be no event. So thank you all for coming today. Now, without further ado, let's get to our lovely speakers. First, I would like to introduce Kuvy. Kuvy serves on the board of advisors for our World Food Travel Association, and she is a PR pro, PR guru. She loves cooking, and especially Indian curries, and her guilty pleasure is 2 giant chocolate chip cookies sandwiched with peanut butter. Of course, I think that's everyone's guilty pleasure. No ice cream on that, Kuvy?
No, I don't need the ice cream, just the peanut butter.
Got it. Right. And then her favorite holiday destination is Istanbul, which I have yet to get to. So I'd love hearing more from you about that.
The spice market is amazing.
I've heard. And then I'd also like to introduce Alexandra Palmerton. Alex is a certified scuba diver since the age of 10, which I don't think a lot of kids could claim. Her pet bulldog is named Bacon, which one would always name their pets after food, correct? And Alex, I want to have a meal with you because your favorite foods are bread, potatoes, and Pinot Noir, and that sounds like a perfectly balanced diet to me.
Absolutely.
And you've eaten, apparently, French fries in almost every U.S. state, which is something I cannot claim.
I'm working on it. I think I have maybe 7 more to go.
Excellent. All right. Well, without further ado, I am going to stop sharing my screen. And Kuvy, would you like to take it away?
Actually, we're going to go with Alex first.
Oh, that works too. Yeah. Great.
Okay, here we go. Work on this sharing screen thing. Okay, so everyone can see my slides here. Okay, so today we are talking about millennials, and specifically digital marketing that surrounds millennials and how we can better reach them. So thanks for joining us all today. I know it's kind of a weird thing to talk about digital connections and the internet while we're talking about travel, because travel is oftentimes a time to get away from those things. But as the millennial generation that's very connected is coming up and becoming our biggest consumers, we need to meet them where they are, which is the truth. They're online. So I've sat in on a lot of webinars, and I like to know where we're going before we go anywhere. So here's kind of a rundown of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about who millennials are, why we even want to bother talking about them anyway, why everybody's talking about them, how to talk to them, where to talk to them. Kuvy's going to touch on PR and media relations as they relate to millennials, and then we'll do a little Q&A. So why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, I am a millennial. I was born in 1991. I was raised on cartoons and Coca-Cola and later the internet. I distinctly remember when my dad brought our first computer home to go online. I was probably 6 years old, and I held on to the bottom of my chair because I thought we were going to be sucked into the computer screen and like into this magical world of the online web, I suppose. Obviously that didn't happen, but figuratively it did suck me in. This has been a passion of mine ever since. So what I do for a living is I help food brands connect with millennials and people of all ages using what I call digital hospitality. My company works mostly with food-based businesses because that's where my passion lies, but we work with anybody. A lot of my clients joke that I help bring them out of the Stone Age, but really what my focus is digital hospitality, which is really just making the tweaks that your business needs to make online to make people feel as comforted and as supported as they do when they're with you in person. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that later. But first we'll dig into, why do millennials even matter? If you're anything like my parents, you're very sick of hearing about millennials. The media talks about them all the time. TV talks about them all the time. So why are we bothering with this? Why is this generation being talked about the way the baby boomers used to be? Obviously they're growing up, but there are more reasons than that. And I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you today, but these are the most important ones that we're going to start with. Here are some facts about millennials as they relate to travel. Obviously you can read them, but I'll read them out loud for you. By 2020, millennials will represent half of all global travel spending. That's just 2 years away. More than 70% of millennials agree that travel is an important part of who they are as a person, so to their character. Most millennials even prioritize travel over buying a home or paying off debt. So this is a clear focus and interest. And 77% of millennials say that experiencing other cultures is important to them. So they don't just want to go and see, they want to fully dive in. And this is important because I talk to a lot of my clients that are restaurants about competition. And with restaurants, I always tell them that your competition is never going to be the restaurant across the street. Your competition is people staying in and eating in their house. But what we've seen with millennials in travel, that you're not having to compete or try to convince people to get out and go and see and do. They've already embraced that. So what we get to focus on is your business. We've already sold travel. So what makes your part of the travel pie interesting, I suppose. So what is a millennial? These are some stats on what makes up a millennial. Born between 1981 and 1996, they evolved with technology. There's a new emerging generation under us that's kind of unnamed that grew up with it already in their hands. It kind of gradually came on with us as we grew. A lot of the words that are used to describe millennials, these may be controversial, but confident, driven, hopeful, progressive, transparent, compassionate, globally minded, globally conscious. And these are all really good. This is good news for all of us if you're able to weave it into your brand messaging. So I thought we'd start with a quote because from Fast Company, which takes a lot of time to study these trends. And it says, ask millennials and baby boomers which companies they value most, and you will get very different answers. If brands want to make an impact with consumers of the future, they need a clear mission and they need meaning. So that's a lot of fluffy talk. So let's look at it practically. Here are some brands that have done really well with millennials. And I talked with Eric about making this a discussion. I don't know how much that'll work with the chat box, but even if you're just thinking of it to yourself, look at some of these companies and think about things that they have in common, because they're ones that have really succeeded in this arena. Kuvy, I don't know if you have sound, but do you have things that you think that these brands have in common?
Well, I mean, there's definitely things that a lot of them have in common, but then there's a couple there that don't really fit. So I would say.
So there's some differences, obviously, but a lot of commonality that we see with brands that are, oh, is there a chat? Yes, hello. They promote a lifestyle more than a product. Yes, that's great. So they do a lot less selling of their actual product and more of a lifestyle. A lot of these companies are technology driven. They're about convenience. They're about value, but not value monetarily as much as value in health and the betterment of the world, I suppose. So one of the perfect examples here is the Honest Company here, if you're familiar with it. It's only been around about less than 10 years, started by Jessica Alba. They sell baby products, diapers, things of that nature. And in less than 10 years, because they've set such a foundation in being value-driven, using healthy ingredients and sustainable products, that they've already outsold Pampers with this new upcoming generation that has babies. So these are some places that are proof of doing things differently is working well. So moving on, I've kind of boiled it down to 3 things that I think that a lot of these businesses have in common that millennials want to see from businesses. They like businesses that understand the role of technology. They like businesses that speak authentically and offer novelty. And they like businesses that cultivate community and conversation. So what we're going to do today briefly is go over these 3 things and talk about them as they can pertain to your brand, your digital marketing strategy, whether you're representing a small town or a tourism company. There are ways to make all of this work for you. You don't have to be as big as Spotify to make a difference. So first, we'll talk about understanding the role of technology. If you can take away one thing from me talking to you today, it's that you need to be online because it can help you, not just because everyone else is. I often hear from clients that, oh, I need to be on Instagram because everyone else is. What I want to show you is that these things can be valuable tools, not just another thing you have to check off of your to-do list to run a business. So talking about technology, there are 2 important things that technology can do for your business, and that is inform people and entertain people. And we're going to break both of those down. So informing people. So before we talk about creative messaging and captions and all of that good stuff, the real purpose of digital marketing is to easily share all of your information with your customers as easily as possible. This generation, and really any generation, they want answers fast. They don't want it to be complicated. So the first thing that I ever say when I work with someone is, how hard are you making it for people to buy from you? If you went to your website right now, how hard is it for someone to contact you? How hard is it to find your pricing? How hard is it for someone to understand what you offer? Sometimes, because you're so deeply entrenched in your business, I suggest having an honest friend or stranger take a look at this and audit this for you and look at your website and say, what information do you think is missing from here that would help me make a purchasing decision and choose you over someone else? So this part's pretty simple. Just don't make it hard for people to buy from you. And I like takeaways. So after each of the points, we're going to have a slide that says, what can you do? You can screenshot this or we can get it to you another time. But when you're looking online, think convenience. Like I said, audit your website. I would suggest finding 2 people, someone who is the most tech-savvy person you know and the least tech-savvy person you know, and have them walk through your booking process if it's online, look at your profiles, and get an honest opinion from both ends of the spectrum. And remember that your social media is an opportunity to share your expertise. Millennials are information hungry all the time. They're used to having Google at their fingertips. So prove that you really know about the topic that people are paying to spend time with you about. This is your time to get people interested in your knowledge. And then offline, because these have to work in tandem, I tell people just ask. After you've worked with someone, after you run a tour group or something like that, just ask people, how was the process? Was it confusing? Is there something we could have done better? And while you're in your experience, whatever you offer, try to think of those learning opportunities. People like to be entertained, and we are going to go into that, but they also like to walk away feeling like there was knowledge gained and something to learn from it. And something else to remember, which I skipped over, is that 66% of millennials are booking trips on their phones. So it's not enough to look at your website on your computer anymore. You need to get on your phone and see how it looks. Is it mobilely optimized? Could you buy on a cell phone? Is that possible? And if not, there are a lot of great free ways to make a mobily optimized website, which if you have questions about later, we can talk about. So next, obviously, the great thing about digital media is the ability to entertain as well. So 87% of millennials use Facebook, Instagram, or Pinterest for travel inspiration. I would argue the remaining people in that don't have a computer, because I don't know anyone who doesn't use social media to scroll for travel inspiration, and 97% of people look at people's social media to share, or they shared their social media experiences while they're traveling. So this is kind of, they always say social media is your highlight reel. So be a part of someone's highlight reel. How can you shape the experiences that you offer to be someone's highlight reel? I think that Anthony Bourdain said it best. He has a quote I'll read here. It says, "When I share a photo online, there are 3 things that go through my head. I want to share this with my friends. I want to develop my brand as a food writer. And maybe, if I'm being honest, I want to show off." So give people those opportunities to show off. So here are some takeaways. Infuse personality into your social media. You're working in hospitality. I'm sure all of you have lots of wealth of knowledge to share, but I'm sure you're also a lot of fun. Don't be afraid to show that on social media. And also look and see what people are already saying about your company. If you're on TripAdvisor, read those reviews and take them to heart. Maybe there's something people love about the experience you offer that you didn't even realize was a highlight, and you can start really hitting that in your messaging. And also highlight, like I said, the moments to show off, those Instagrammable moments. While if you're taking people on a tour, offer to take pictures for them. Stop and say, this is where people really love to get that Instagram photo. Kind of embrace those things instead of brushing over them. Okay, so next, speak authentically and offer novelty. For decades, and really since the beginning of time, people have seen food as a way to truly immerse themselves in culture. So being in food tourism, we're already a step ahead of everyone else, because whatever service you're offering, you're providing some way for people to dig deep and learn about the area that you exist in. But what's new about this generation is millennials can sniff out lack of authenticity from a mile away. Kind of gone are the days that you want to go in a big group in a big line and eat from places that maybe aren't authentic. You've got people that really want to dig deep. They want to go where the locals go. They want to see what the locals see. 78% of people want to learn something new while they travel, and half of millennials say they pick a destination solely based on experiencing the culture. So it's not about just seeing the Eiffel Tower anymore. People want to see where the locals go, what the locals eat. And another way to do that is to have clear values and communicate them. Does your company invest back into the community? People love to see that. They love to see having a global perspective, although you're offering a local experience. So here are some ways that you can apply that. So communicate with words like authentic, immersive, a true look into, an educational view on, an insider look, what the locals love. And then offline, when you're evaluating the experience or the service that you offer people, try to make it a true slice of life. The good and the bad. I think people want to feel like when they travel to a place, just be real with people, show them what it is and what it isn't. And don't shy away from that. Things don't have to be perfectly polished all the time. And next, cultivate community and conversation. The true essence of hospitality is making people feel welcome and making them feel comfortable. So no matter if they have dietary restrictions, physical disabilities or abilities, or anything where they need some extra accommodation, do your best to know those beforehand. And technology is a great way to figure that out before. If you have all of your customers' names and information before you go on an experience with them, ask about these things. That way you can get ahead of it and make sure that people feel comfortable throughout the process, because they will always remember you taking that extra step. And another travel report found that most people don't mind traveling solo because they find that it's a way to meet people. So if you're creating like a tour group or something, make it truly immersive. Offer opportunities for that group to get to know each other, to invest in each other. sometimes try to make it feel less like disjointed and give them opportunities, spark conversation, treat people as individuals. There's this great article in the Atlantic that I can share if anyone wants to read it. There's this woman, Eve Turow. She's a kind of a millennial food travel expert. She's written a book on it. And she had this quote that was great that said, she said that she finds that many people latch onto food as something that engages all of the senses and brings people together in a physical space. And she said, through interviews over and over again, I keep hearing that people want something that's tangible, what they can see and feel and smell and taste, that we're guinea pigs growing up in this digital world, but people will always crave conversation. So during the experience, before the experience, that's important, but where people often drop off, especially in the digital space, is after the experience. If people share photos of your experience or whatever you offer online, comment back, thank them, like it, even better, reshare it, let them feel appreciated, ask for reviews. Reviews are always going to go a long way. Studies have shown 80% of people trust travel reviews and 18% of people trust travel agents. That's huge. So you've got to invest in the people who are actually using your product. And if they had a great time, just honestly tell them face to face how much a review makes a difference for you and your business. And then you can repurpose those reviews as Facebook posts, as Instagram posts. You don't have to sell your own business. You can let people who have experienced you that you. Something else we've talked about, trying to turn social media more into a conversation. Something I would suggest, a lot of people talk about how Facebook engagement is going down and it's getting harder and harder to see ROI there. But one thing I've encouraged a lot of people to do is try Facebook groups. So I would look into Facebook travel groups or associations that are in your area. Just join and be quiet at first. Listen to what people are talking about. Listen to what they're craving, what they did or didn't like about other experiences. You'll learn a lot about what people want without having to solicit for it, which is really great. And then offline, this is kind of the same thing, but encourage mixing, get to know people as human beings and not talking to a faceless group. Although digital media can help make us feel really disconnected, this is your opportunity to help people feel those magic moments of true connection and continue them offline after the experience is over. So that's most of the information from me. But what I wanted to say before we pass it over to Kuvy to talk about PR is that if you want to learn more about this, if this is interesting to you, if you want to keep going, I offer a free email series called 5-Minute Food Marketing. There's a little link there if you want to screenshot it, write it down. You'll get 1 email a week, totally free. It's just one tip, like one of these boiled down and how you can apply it to your business. Also, if you have any questions, that is a direct line to me in my inbox. So just let me know. And otherwise, I'll be around for the Q&A, but I'm going to kick it over to Kuvy.
All right, thank you. That was great, Alex. Thank you so much. All right, let me see here. Share screen. Let's see if we can get this to work. Okay, does everyone see the 2 ladies laughing at the farmer's market?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Let's click this. Okay, yay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to us. We really appreciate the opportunity. Alex, that was great. I learned a bunch. I made a bunch of notes from that. So my name is Kuvy. I founded Root PR about 17 years ago. Our team has, we have quite an amazing team of tastemakers. We specialize in PR, content creation, social media, writing, special events. We excel at developing story angles and landing feature stories for our clients. We're avid readers and fascinated by trends in the food, travel, and lifestyle industries. So we really specialize in 3 main types of industries. Food and beverage, of course, including agritourism, so farms and food and drink related festivals, events and restaurants and wineries and breweries and all that good stuff. We also work a lot with consumer products, culinary personalities, writers, that sort of thing. Travel and leisure, like attractions, retreats, hotels, spas, and then health and wellness. So personalities and experiences with products and services, everyone from the eco-aware to the environmentally devout. So that's a little bit about Root PR and who we are. So it's funny because when I founded Root PR 17 years ago, I named us Root PR. And we still are PR, but what PR does is much broader than what it used to be. So much has changed in the last 17 years. I bet you can relate, actually. There was no Twitter, there was no Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat. Cell phones weren't smart yet. In fact, most of them were just phones. With fewer channels, the media landscape was a lot easier to navigate than it is now. And print media was king. It was really where you wanted to be. The goal was to get your clients into the press. And it was called press because of printing presses. So it was called press because it was print. So PR was really mostly media relations. Organizations sent press releases and news statements to the media for public consumption. So when you said PR, you mostly meant media relations back then. And the reason why it was really media relations was so important was that your customers really relied on the press. So a few trusted experts who usually specialized in a subject for advice on where to go. So back then, the people who were telling you where to go and what to do were the press. And so that's why media relations and relationships with the media was so important. But today, the ability to write a press release and pitch the press effectively is not enough. So let me fast forward here. So I meant to show you this earlier, but this is a few of our clients and the types of folks that we work with. So again, print media was king, PR was mostly media relations, customers relied pretty much solely on the press. And now we get to the demise of the press room, the newsroom. So newsrooms are shrinking because people are basically not relying on the press as much. So they're not reading the press as much, therefore the newsrooms are shrinking. When we used to have a food editor, a travel editor, and a lifestyle editor, along with a whole staff of writers for those folks. Now we're lucky, publications are often lucky enough just to have one features editor who kind of tries to do it all. And they have a couple of freelancers that they work with, but hardly anyone on staff. And these freelancers have huge beats and the editors have huge beats, and they're trying to be experts on everything because of the shrinking newsrooms. And again, since they have to be experts on such a wide variety of subjects, and they're trying to write so many pieces because there's hardly any of them to do it, they're really paid very little per piece. So again, the reason newsrooms are shrinking is the media aren't the only ones that your customers are listening to anymore. With the internet giving voice to anyone with access to the internet, new types of experts have evolved, and they're broadly called influencers. So we have to build relationships with those influencers now. It's a huge and complicated task to figure out which one your potential customers are listening to and how to set up the most effective partnerships with those folks that won't break the bank. And hopefully you all had a chance to watch Veruska's session on influencers and your digital strategy yesterday. But if you didn't, you can get access to that through the Online Summit's website after this. So,
Kuvy, is that your paper? I hear some noise that's a little distracting.
Sure, I will try not to rustle.
Thank you.
So there's so many new outlets now, right? There's so many ways of getting information. With this many sources of information, we are no longer just doing media relations to a few media experts. We're doing marketing. So I'm called Root PR, but honestly, we could be called Root Marketing because we're doing so much more now to try to reach folks in all the different places where they are. So we're taking our customer's message and we're adjusting it to fit each of the channels where their customers are. we're taking our clients' messages and adjusting it to fit each of the messages, the channels where their customers are. I'm going to give you a few steps of things that you can do to connect with your current and potential customers. And of course, this isn't just for millennials, this is for everyone. So what can I do? The very first thing you need to do is to craft your message. So you'll want to sit down and create your key messages. That's putting together a concise list of what makes your organization special, different, and of course, better than your competition. Be sure to write this as objectively as possible. Stand in your potential customers' shoes. What do they think is important to them about your organization? What do your customers say they love about your organization? So this isn't just about what you think your key messages are, but it's your brand, which means it's what does everyone else think your key messages are? What does everyone else think is important about you? So that's the first thing to do, is to brainstorm a list of those key messages. The next thing to do is to put your best foot forward. So you'll use those key messages to write or rewrite all of your organization's messaging. Your website, the about page on all of your social media channels, your brochures, your postcards, videos you create, even the way you and your staff speak about your company to your customers, the way they answer the phone, should all reflect your key messaging. So one thing I like to tell my clients to do is to print the key messages and put it by the phones. And key messages are also great for, let's say the New York Times calls and says, hey, I heard about you. I heard you're awesome and I want to write a piece, but I only have 5 minutes. What would the person who answers the phone say to the New York Times? That's what your key messages are. Figure out how to stand out. So do things your competitors aren't doing, right? It's a crowded, noisy space. Do things that no one else is doing. Hold events to give your customers opportunities to meet you, to learn about your organization, to sample what you have to offer. So little mini versions of what you normally do. Create a corporate activism program, again with the millennials, especially with millennials. Like Alex was saying, it's really important that you show that you connect to other people and that you are globally minded. So figure out who would be a nonprofit or nonprofits that would connect you to your ideal potential customer. Who does your ideal potential customer support? Where are those people forming in groups, and how can you get involved in those groups? And one way is through nonprofits. Look for opportunities for you and your leadership team to speak at events, hold classes, and become known as thought leaders in your field. Go where they are. Figure out where your potential customers are spending their time and attention, and how you can participate in that activity as well, or be a part of the conversation if it's online. So this might be a festival or other event, or if it's social media, use some of the advice that Alex gave you on how to use social media to connect with your potential and current customers. And then finally, don't do it alone. What partnership organizations might be a good fit for you? Join your local Chamber of Commerce. Get involved with your local Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Tourism Office. Make sure to set aside frequent and ample time to participate in those groups so that you can take full advantage of the marketing and relationship building opportunities that they provide. And then finally, media relations still works. Those are all ideas that are not necessarily media relations, but you want to do media relations as well. So you want to do it all. That's all. Just do it all. It could be very valuable to your organization for the media to write about you, right? Or have you on their TV show or their radio show or their podcast. So make sure to set aside time for some media relations as well. And it's not that hard. Figure out who the press are who might be interested in your story. Track down their contact information online, usually online, or you can call the organization. And send them a news release or a simple pitch email. So I have templates for both of those, and if you contact me afterwards, I'll be happy to send those along to you. But there is definitely a very set format that they expect news releases to be written in. And the pitch email is just an email where you've researched who they are, you know what they like to write about, and you send them an email and you say, hi, I read your piece on blah, 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 to start to build a relationship, to show that you care about them and you know who they are. I'm a local organization who blah, blah, blah. And then tell them something interesting that you're doing that's coming up, especially if you can tie it into something that might be a trend that's just starting to happen. But any news that you might have. And, they really do appreciate hearing directly from the organizations as well. It doesn't just have to be a PR agency that contacts them. They like to hear from the locals. Don't forget to include your social media information in that news release or in the email. And we didn't used to do that in the old days when we sent a press release out, but now you want to make sure to give them an opportunity to follow you and connect with you. So make sure that you have your social media following information in that news release or in the email. And again, my news release template can show you how to do that. It's also smart to try to build a relationship with them by following them on social media, liking and commenting their posts. And then you can invite them in. You can invite them to come and sample what you do. A lot of people don't think to do that, but you absolutely can do that. Send them an email and say, hey, we're doing this really fun thing. It's coming up. Give them about 3 or 4 weeks notice. Say, we'd love to have you come and experience this. Or you could hold a media event. So you can either invite them to come and do something you're already doing, or you could put on an actual media event where where you can host them, a bunch of them at the same time, which can be a nice, efficient way to do it. The other advantage of a media event is that you can really dedicate time to them. So if let's say you're giving a tour and they're coming on a tour and that you're trying to be a good tour giver to everyone else in the group, it can be a little hard to do a great job with that press person. So having a media event is awesome because you're dedicating your time to those press. And they can really have time to ask you their questions and get to know you and interview you. And that whole holding a media event is a whole special animal. And we could go and I could spend a long time talking about media, how to hold a really great media event. But again, we can talk about that in the Q&A if you're interested, or you can connect with me afterwards and I can give you some more advice on that. And then that's it. If you need help, again, please contact me. Here's my contact information. You just need to remember it's Root Public Relations, so the email address is www.rootpr.com. But please follow us. I'd love to connect with you and follow you back, hear about any questions you might have. And again, really appreciate you tuning in today, so thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kuvy. And thank you, Alex. That was fantastic. So I've invited people to put their questions into the chat window, but before we start getting some questions from the delegates, I would like to ask a couple questions. One thing that we hear, you hear about it in the press all the time, and people are talking about this, is that Facebook is on the way out, and you're not going to, Facebook's not dying anytime soon, but people's interest, that the rate of sign up, their rate of engagement, their loyalty to the brand has been severely diminished, especially since the recent data breach situation. What are your thoughts on Facebook, and maybe what else are millennials using now that might replace Facebook eventually?
Do you want me to take it? Okay. Well, one of the things I touched on that, again, like she said, I could have talked about the whole time, are Facebook groups. So when you can join those, and that'll be as your personal profile, not as your business page. That gives you a great way to have better one-on-one conversations with people. And the engagement there's no algorithm keeping people from seeing that content. So I always try to push people into those if they want to have more one-on-one conversations. At this point, I'm still telling my clients that you should have a Facebook presence, but you may not necessarily need to dedicate a ton of time to it. Putting a little money behind some targeting to some people in your area or people that are an interest is always going to be helpful. but organic reach on Facebook just really isn't there anymore. So I try to push people to other options. I'd say Instagram, but I think something very similar could happen to it in the future. The biggest thing I push people to, which I really didn't touch on today, but talk about in my 5-minute food marketing series, is email marketing. I always tell people to get people's email addresses, because no matter what, no algorithm can change and take that reach away from you. Once you have someone's email address, you have a way to get in touch with them forever. So I try to tell people to really more hang their hat on that than traditional social media. And especially for travel companies, don't ever underestimate TripAdvisor. I feel like use that as a valuable social media tool. Obviously, people leave reviews, but you have the ability to comment back, to continue on the conversation and respond to positive ones in addition to the negative ones, to treat everyone kind of equally and engage with people there. Because like I said, Facebook and Instagram, they're going to be owned by somebody else. So if you can focus on the things like your website and your email marketing that you have more control over, no one can ever take that from you.
Alex, what's your thoughts on Google Groups versus Facebook Groups?
To be honest, I haven't used Google Groups a lot. They might be more popular internationally and something I'm less familiar with. So I wouldn't want to weigh in on it when I don't know as much about it, if I'm going to be totally transparent.
Sure.
And then I see someone saying, do you think it looks insincere if you respond to every review? I say no. I think only responding, obviously you should always respond to every single negative review. If you join 5-minute food marketing, I just sent an email out that you'll get in the sequence that talks about a template for responding to negative reviews, but I don't like to give haters all the attention. I think if someone writes a great review, I don't think you should say the same canned response, but hey, Eric, thank you so much. It was so fun getting to know you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip, or something like that. Just make it a little bit tailored. I don't think it seems insincere. It seems engaged, as long as it's authentic.
Cool. And then for either of you, do you see a difference in travel behaviors between American and European millennials? I find that European millennials travel often solo or with friends on a budget and don't book guided tours. How do American millennials travel?
Well, I can weigh in on this. My husband and I just went, I guess it was a year and a half ago, to Europe for our honeymoon. And the only travel, like group guided travel we did, were ones that we read on TripAdvisor and knew that they were small and they were very community driven. The example I can give you is we booked a bus tour out of Florence and into Chianti. And it was this sweet man who was a local. He fit probably 10 of us in a van that he owned. We sat and had a meal together. It was less get on a huge bus and go see these big points, and more one-on-one, I guess. And I think yes, you travel on a budget. We definitely traveled on a budget. We Airbnb'd in some apartments that I would never stay in again. But I think especially when it comes to food, that's something that I don't ever skimp on in my budget. I will stay somewhere gross to have a great food experience. And I think if you identify your target market as that and really cater to those people, you won't run into that as much.
Cool. All right. Last question, then we need to wrap things up. But could one of you talk a little bit about journalists versus bloggers? And Kuvy, you were talking a lot about pitching journalists, and a lot of people know that bloggers can be influencers. And I know that there's a split in how bloggers and journalists are defined, and sometimes people turn their noses down at bloggers. Meanwhile, bloggers are getting tons of hits and follows, and they're creating real change. So what would your thoughts be on pitching to bloggers versus journalists?
I have a couple of thoughts, and then Alex, maybe you can weigh in too. So obviously the difference between journalists and bloggers is that journalists are paid by another organization for their expertise, and they are supposed to be thinking about editorial versus advertorial. So journalists are supposed to be telling the truth and not being influenced financially. bloggers can do whatever they want. So they're supposed to make a point in their blog post or somewhere on their blog that says that they received monetary compensation, but I think a lot of them do. A lot of them get free product, and a lot of them get monetary compensation. And but so it's, I mean, I in a way I miss the old days, because I remember, like, my local newspaper, they wouldn't come to a restaurant and have a free meal because it might disrupt their journalistic, integrity. So nowadays they do. I mean, it's interesting that they've become a little bit more flexible as well. But I think that's the big difference, right? Journalists to bloggers. Is bloggers, they're just a person who is popular, and they can say whatever they want. So
and how would you pitch a blogger versus a traditional journalist?
So the way that I do it is, so some things are the same. You still want to show that you care about what they write. You still want to show that you've read what they write. You still want to show that your client, that you've thought through that your client is a good fit for them, or that you're a good fit for them. So I really enjoyed your most recent blog post, or I've loved reading your recent blogs. I saw that you wrote about blah, blah, blah. Therefore, I thought you might be interested in this thing that we're doing. And then what I do is I start off by not offering money, by just saying, hey, we'd love to have you come and visit us, or we'd love to send you this thing. And then if they write back and say, we'd be interested, but this is how it works, and then that's when they introduce the financial side of things, then we go from there. Alex, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I didn't even mention this, but I'm a food journalist in Denver as well. But what I always tell people is never underestimate the bloggers. They have the reach. When you get the right ones who are talking to your target market, they can be more valuable for you than the New York Times. And my advice would be, especially if you're destination based, which I know many of you are, obviously, sometimes it's hard to reach out to a blogger who lives maybe in Texas and you're in Oregon, to get them to come and try your specific thing just for the sake of coming for that. So I would suggest partnering with other local attractions and maybe a hotel, and getting together and saying, hey, we want to get this person or these people here. Would y'all want to work together on building an itinerary, kind of giving them more of a reason to come than just one thing? It might help. Obviously, you would want to work hard to make sure that your part of that puzzle stands out a little more. But I think I've been on media tours before, and it definitely made it a lot easier when there was more than one thing I was going to accomplish, than just one experience or one company. But
that's another good reason to have a good relationship with your local Chamber of Commerce or Visitors and Tourism Bureau, because you can reach out to them and say, hey, we really, us and two other, a hotel and a restaurant or whatever have gotten together, and we really want to bring X, Y, and Z writers in, or bloggers in. Can you please talk to your relationships, your hotels, and see if we can get and offer free hotel rooms. Mm-hmm. See, quite often those Chambers and Visitors and Convention Bureau folks are putting on media tours anyway. And so, if you reach out to them and say, hey, if you're doing anything, we really want to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. And that way, that's to cut your costs.
We've talked about this about packaging. So like, say, I don't know, if you're a local distillery, and there are other ones in the area, get together with them and talk about how to build it into an experience. Boulder does a great job with that. They have like the Boulder wine tour. So make it part of a bigger picture, because it's very unlikely that someone's ever just going to write an article about this one thing. They need it to be part of a trend or part of an experience or something more comprehensive. So I would try to think bigger than yourself, whether you're talking to press or bloggers, and kind of help give them the idea so they don't have to do any of the lifting.
Right. Well, ladies, I think we need to wrap up right now. We need to get ready for the next session. But that was Session 5, Let's Get Digital, Maximizing Your Message in the Millennial Age. Kuvy and Alex, I'd like to thank you for sharing the depth of your expertise. It's always a pleasure to hear your lovely voices and get the glimpse inside your head of what you're thinking and what you're knowing. So thanks again for sharing today. And in just about 10 minutes, we will be in session 6. We'll see you all over there. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.